everybody, and welcome to episode 176 of the world's longest tenured Denver Nuggets spin-off podcast. Welcome to the DNVR Nuggets' Serbian Corner. My name is Miroslav, and before we begin, please take a moment to like the video on YouTube. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the DNVR Sports YouTube channel and DNVR Nuggets podcast channel. The audio version is ideal for you commute or to make your office or home office time more bearable. If you want to support the show more directly, you can become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/MiroslavCok, just like my Seco tier supporters Peter Plummer, Daniel Lynch, and Brian Johnson. Patreon supporters can enjoy the ad-free audio version of this show. They can also submit ideas for guests and topics and appear on the show during the summer. This week started in Memphis, but the home team didn't fly in from their trip on time because of the ice storm, so the Nuggets ended up on a 3-day team-building trip in Tennessee. 14 hours after they landed in Denver, the Nuggets had a game with the leader of the East, the Detroit Pistons. Big Val and Peyton returned to the lineup, so it was just the 4 opening night starters that were out of the game. The first quarter looked awful. Jamal Murray and Peyton Watson were met with serious physicality, which they didn't respond well to. Only 18 points in the first period describe how impotent their offense looked. In the second, Bruce Brown sparked a 14-2 run that got the game close. Jamal started waking up in the second half of the third quarter while Spencer Jones was making his threes. Still, the Pistons repelled Denver's attacks and went to the last break with a 10-point lead. The good guys played well in the fourth, led by Jamal Murray, but the end of the game came to several twos. Jamal's twos made turnaround fading long twos, and 2 clutch missed free throws. 2 turnaround short jumpers by the worst basketball player in the world, according to 76ers fans, Tobias Harris, and 2 more clutch-made free throws from him. The Nuggets were just short of a very satisfying comeback, but they had to realize they were out-hustled and out-physicaled by the guest team. 2 nights later, Michael Porter Jr. and the Brooklyn Nets came to town. It was the story of 4 quarters. In the first one, it was Michael Porter Jr. versus Tim Hardaway Jr., Jamal Murray, and Peyton Watson. So the Nuggets held to a 4-point lead. In the second, it was Mike again and Tim, Jamal, and Bruce Brown who were carrying the load. So the Nuggets created a 15-point lead at the half, which should normally mean an easy win against the bottom feeder from the East at 5,280 feet of altitude. Alas, the Nuggets figured out a way to score only 15 points in the third, and despite having a pretty successful defensive effort, lost almost all of their halftime lead. Mike continued to light the Nets on fire, and the good guys had too few guys capable of scoring in that period. Naturally, we got the drama in the fourth. Mike continued his scoring masterclass, this time backed up by Drake Powell, whoever that is. Jamal started the quarter rough, but he was there when the game was decided in the last 2 minutes. Got some help from Bruce and Jonas and eventually secured the 13th home win of the season, snapping the 3-game home losing streak at the ball. Yikes. Finally, last night, the surging, previously written off Clippers came to visit, and several hours before the tip-off, Shams Charania of ESPN reported that what DNVR's own reporter had hinted at. I can't say who it was. I'll just say his name rhymes with cares. Sorry, I meant to say Cares. Anyway, Shamsy boy, who previously raped the English language by saying that Giannis Antetokounmpo is ready for a new home at the February 5th trade deadline in the off season. I mean, Shams, buddy, Giannis is not buying a house. He requested a trade. Stop bullshitting the bullshitter. I promise to call you out for stuff like this. Anyway, I digress too hard here. Shams reported that our Lord and Savior Nikola Jokić was planning to return in this game versus the Clippers. I might have rephrased his tweet a bit. Anyway, return he did, and even though I thought he was a bit rusty and was trying to figure out how to get involved in the actions of the team that has been playing a very different brand of basketball for the past month, he still found a way to dominate with 31, 12, and 5 on 11 shots from the field and 24 and a half minutes. No, he did not make 10 threes, but it appears he was grinding Joel Embiid tape for a month because he was drawing fouls and free throws with ease, 17 free throws to be exact. Several other guys had great games. Peyton was scoring in bunches in the first quarter, Jamal and Tim Hardaway Jr. in the third, but as the rule of Miroslav says, in the end, Joker scores the most points, and we shouldn't think too much about it. 3 opening night starters are still out. Aaron Gordon is nowhere near coming back at this moment, and yet the Nuggets feel reloaded and ready to chew gum and kick some ass, and they are all out of chewing gum. All right, it is time for me to bring in my guest for today. As you know, I try to bring the most relevant guests every week, and since we are fast approaching the trade deadline, it is time for the biggest CBA and salary cap expert in the Nuggets universe. From StatsPerform, it's the Stats Squatch, Jake Coyne. Welcome back to the show, Jake.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is the time of year where I make my return to do some of this kind of stuff, and so some people are calling it the second biggest return in Denver Nuggets Nuggets land this week.
I love it. I love it. You always take those things to you and don't escape from the history, I guess. So Jake, let's start with last night's game. What stood out the most for you versus the Clippers? The thing that got me the most encouraged about the fact that Peyton Watson still has the opportunity to spread his wings and create for himself and others, despite the return of literally the biggest point guard in game's history. What did you see from the Nuggets' leading scorers, Joker, Murray, Peyton, and Hardaway last night?
Yeah, well, I think the big thing is just kind of the return of Jokić just kind of made everything feel a little bit easier. So if you look at the Nuggets since he had been out, I believe it is 11 straight wins of theirs had all been by 10 or fewer points, which was like a franchise record, I want to say. And so he comes back and now they're able to get a little bit easier of a win than they were able to while he was out. And so I would say that was the biggest thing that stood out to me was just everything felt a little bit easier. On the more specific front around, I thought it was really good to see Watson kind of be able to establish a flow even with the Joker back. He was able to get his and make a really good game for himself. So I think it's pretty much all positives coming out of last night.
So the Nuggets had a fun 15 game. I'm not sure if fun is the right word to use, but they played 15 games without Joker, and they've had so many other starters missing in that period as well, and they still managed to get to what was it, 9-6 record, which is really good compared to what they used to get when Joker was out for more than a couple of games. But one thing I am grateful for is that this period is over, because as fun as it was to win more than lose, than lose, the Nuggets had this negative point differential in those 15 games, and we've been mocking the Lakers all season for having a negative point differential for the entire season, even though they still have a pretty good record, and they're top 5 in the West. I haven't checked the standings today. So are you relieved that now we don't have to grasp for silver linings and just concentrate on actually building chemistry with the main guy?
Oh yeah, it's a huge relief. And I think like this stretch of basketball that goes from sort of the end of December to the All-Star break, that's kind of the dog days of the season, kind of a forgettable stretch, easy to sort of get distracted and unfocused, and so it's really impressive that Denver was able to keep such a good record, keep their standing in the Western Conference pretty much, despite it being this rough stretch of the season, as well as being so injured. It's really impressive. It's a credit to the coaching staff and David Adelman, obviously. But I'm totally with you. It was a good thing to go through, I think. Let some guys explore their games a little bit, but happy to be done with it.
And by the way, the breaking news from today is that the Spurs just lost a game, so the Nuggets are actually alone at the second seed right now in the West. Of course, that's very fragile and might change, within 24 hours. But let's enjoy this moment in time where the Nuggets are just, I believe, 5 games behind OKC, and they're now supposed to play the OKC 4 times until the end of the season, starting on Sunday. What are your expectations of tomorrow's game? Do you expect the full roster from the Nuggets to play tomorrow?
Yeah, so I mean, aside from the guys that are obviously injured and will remain out, sounded to me like Tim Hardaway will probably be in for Sunday, assuming he didn't wake up today with a ankle the size of a basketball. So that'll hopefully be good, and I expect an intense game. I think, when you kind of think back about some of the teams that have beat Denver in the playoffs, I think they do take those matchups a little personally, and they do try and flex their muscle a little bit when they play them in the regular season, as opposed to just a normal regular season game. So I expected intensity, should be playoff caliber, even though Denver's missing a few guys, and I expect a good game.
So Aaron Gordon is going to be out for next 4 to 6 weeks or more, honestly, because he's just going to be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. So there needs to be a different kind of packing order. And, Aaron has been out for a long time already, so they've already figured some stuff out. How would you handle the minutes of the current big three of Joker, Jamal, and Peyton Watson? How would you stagger those three today? And how about when everybody is back? Would you start Peyton Watson or maybe play him off the bench because it makes it easier for him to stagger with a second unit, or stagger without the other two guys?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, in the near future, while Aaron Gordon is out, I would keep Watson there in the starting lineup. I would stagger Jamal with the bench. Seems like last night they found a group that was pretty good in their 2 bench stints. They were able to pad that lead a little bit, and so I would expect more of that. And I think they'll find a good thing there. And I really like the Watson minutes next to Jokic. Those have been really good this year. He does a lot of really great things. He's obviously blossoming into a great player, so definitely happy to have him there. I have seen some people speculate about when Gordon comes back, are we going to take him off the bench because, of injury issues and because Watson's looking so good. I kind of lean the opposite way. I think you probably start Gordon, but I think you probably bring Watson in pretty early off the bench and let him play some minutes with Jokic. So I think if you can kind of maximize the Watson and Jokic minutes, even with Watson out of the starting lineup, I think it's going to do good things for Denver.
And another dilemma the Nuggets fans have is more of, Peyton Watson versus Christian Brown in the starting lineup, because we've seen Peyton Watson being able to play at the shooting guard position as well, even though he is more naturally at a small forward position. One thing I want to see from the Nuggets until the end of the season, and hopefully we'll have enough health for it to materialize, is just like 150 or 200 minutes of opening night starters, but with Peyton Watson instead of Christian Brown, because this is a lineup we've seen 0 possessions of this season, last season, whatever. It never happened. Like, it's a theoretical lineup that never happened, and it's really a shame that we never got a glimpse of it, because I think it would be awesome. I think it would be amazing, but at the same time, how can I be sure when we never saw it coming before?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think this coaching staff is also a little bit more willing to experiment with some lineups as opposed to the previous coaching staff. So I think it's one that we probably will see, assuming Cam and and Watson and the rest of those guys get healthy at the same time. And I'm excited to see it as well because, people that have followed my reports that I make, they know I'm a fan of guys with size, guys that can rebound, length. And so putting Watson at the 2, while it might pose certain problems, I think it also can be a really strong lineup as well.
Okay, let's take a short break, and then we are gonna expand the story more league wide. So don't go anywhere. Okay, so Jake, when it comes to this part of season, the trade deadline part of the season, which is very amusing to a lot of, especially more casual fans who are more concentrated on football season, and now the football season is almost over. Now a lot of attention goes to the NBA. But what are you focused the most on in this part of NBA season in general, for your work and stuff like that?
Yeah, so as far as like the actual work I do, my paid work and stuff, a lot of what we're focused on right now is how can we make certain guys look really good with our research. Sometimes we have agents that reach out to us and they want, hey, how can we make my client look really good for possible future contract negotiations and things like that. And so a lot of it's really player based right now. As far as more of like the roster building stuff, which obviously I'm not working for a team currently, but I think one of the things that you look at this time of year is not only how do we make our team better going into these playoffs, but sort of how do we make our team set up to be successful in the off season as well. And so you have to be looking at not only this year's contracts and salaries, but you have to be looking at next year's as well. And sort of, can we move anything right now that doesn't hurt our playoff chances and also sets us up for a more successful future? So definitely it's a multi-year thing you're looking at this time of year.
So it's really interesting to me when you mentioned that agents will hire you to make their client look better using the numbers. And I always remember the story about Nikola Jokić versus Jusuf Nurkić for the starting job on the Nuggets, and there was this big front office dilemma whether they should start a rookie who's been a second round pick or their first round pick from that same 2014 draft class. And the story Josh Kroenke mentioned is that they've made a blind poll with 2 guys and displayed their stats where Josh Kroenke immediately picked Nikola Jokić, but the other guy on the poll wasn't Jusuf Nurkić, it was Larry Bird from his rookie or whatever, age 20 season. So are the jobs you get more difficult than that? Like, are there less obvious guys to be promoted in those situations?
No, it's funny. It's a good question. Yeah, I would say a lot of our stuff is a lot more, not to say it's that what that story is, not that it's unrealistic, because obviously we know Jokić is in that caliber of player, but a lot of it's a lot more realistic, and I'm looking at guys that are maybe role players and comparing them to guys that are in similar roles. Luckily, I haven't had to do any work that's for some really blossoming star type guy and trying to compare him to the best of the best. So that would certainly be a more difficult task, I think.
Yeah, it is. I remember once I did it for Bones Highland. I wasn't paid for it, but I found that like Bones Highland had one of the most electric rookie seasons because he got a huge chance on the Nuggets when Jamal Murray was injured. Okay, let's now move to the Nuggets front office moves from last summer. Since I haven't had you on the show since the last July, we talked about it just before the the start of the season. And I have to ask you, how did you view the Nuggets front office moves back then versus how do you view them now with the new information available with all the games missed from their main guys?
Yeah, I think my view overall on the moves was very positive. So Cam Johnson was a guy that I had highlighted in previous reports of mine, and I said, hey, if there's a pretty easy Michael Porter replacement 1-for-1 that's cheaper, it's probably a guy like Cam Johnson. So was certainly happy with the move they were able to do there. I do wish they could have traded a 2031 pick instead of a 2032, but sometimes you don't get those options and they hold out on you. So that is what it is. But overall, I was really happy with the moves. Obviously, the Valanciunas move, A+, incredible move, and I still feel that way about it. Tim Hardaway, A+ signing at the time and continues to be that way. He'll obviously go through his cold streaks, but he's going to win you a playoff game or two. There's no doubt in my mind. So great signing there. Bruce Brown hasn't had the best year, but he's a minimum player that I'm okay with being in the rotation. So it's just another positive grade there. So all felt great about him at the time. Still feel good about him today, despite some of the obvious issues with Cam Johnson. I think the grades will come based on the playoff performance. So if Cam is hurt or performs really poorly in the playoffs, I think that's when you can kind of look at it and say, oh, maybe this wasn't the win that we thought it was. But right now, I think you're nothing but happy.
So when you mentioned the Jonas Valanciunas trade where the Nuggets practically just gave away the last season of Dario Saric and got back Jonas, so Sacramento could spare a couple of or $5 million to be able to to sign Dennis Schroeder, who they're now trying to trade away again. The moral of the story is just trade with Sacramento Kings. Like go in business with Sacramento Kings. And by the way, the Nuggets have never dealt with New Orleans Pelicans, which is a malpractice. Like we've seen so many dumb moves by New Orleans Pelicans so far in their history. So yeah, hopefully we'll see something in that department as well. But I don't want to joke too much about stuff like that. How would you compare the Nuggets' depth and the top level talent to those of other contenders like OKC, San Antonio, Houston, Detroit, and whoever else you pick in the East? Because I don't really think too much about the other Eastern Conference teams.
Yeah, I think if you're just looking at depth, I think you probably put OKC on a different level compared to everybody else. I think they have enough depth that they can withstand an injury or two and still be totally fine and not notice it at all. Whereas I think a team like Denver, obviously they've been able to win these regular season games with guys hurt, but I think in the playoffs, if they have a guy or two injured, I think you're going to really feel it because if you're having to play a Julian Strawther, a Jalen Pickett, I think teams are going to key in on that a lot more, and you're going to feel it a lot more than you do in the regular season. So definitely a step below OKC, but I don't think there's any other team, any other contending team that has depth that is significantly stronger than Denver. You look at Detroit over there in the East, kind of short on shooting. They kind of need some more shooting at this trade deadline. If they lose one of their shooters, it's going to be really detrimental to them. So they're kind of in the same boat as Denver. Can't get hurt or else it might be a disaster. Same thing with the Knicks. They signed Yabusele over the offseason, and that has not gone as planned, or else their depth might be a little stronger. Houston, they've obviously dealing with injuries with Adams and Van Vliet. Dorian Finney-Smith hasn't been that great for them. He was kind of their big signing outside of the big trade they had, obviously. So I think the moral of the story is going for depth pieces doesn't always work out, and you're seeing that across the league. nice thing for Denver is that it seems like all the depth guys they went for are kind of working out. Even if Bruce is having a little bit of a down season, it's still better than what they had last year. So Denver has been lucky in that regard.
Yeah, Dorian Finney-Smith is basically just the new version of Robert Covington, player that everybody wants to have, and he doesn't actually play, or when he plays, he's not that great. So at some point, he's going to become, I'm guessing, a minimum salary player as well. Just like I'm digressing here, but do you expect us to see more and more guys we consider really good players on a minimum contract, considering all the penalties of the first and second apron? Because I've been looking at the luxury tax bills for the teams, and they're not as big as they used to be. Like, teams are trying to get under those aprons for sure. We only have Cleveland with just a stupid amount of luxury tax. Everybody else is trying to shrink their extra expenses. So can you see some really solid players like Tim Hardaway Jr. this season just being squeezed into the minimum roles or minimum contracts?
Yeah, I think we could start to see a little bit more of that. Obviously, one big reason is the aprons that you just mentioned. I think another reason is sort of this tanking type culture that certain teams are having. So if you take a team like Utah or Brooklyn, they have no reason to use any of their salary cap or their exceptions on bringing in a talented player if they have no motivation to really compete. So you kind of take that money off the market, and then you take the aprons into account, and that takes some stuff off the market. And so I think you definitely see some guys get squeezed into these types of deals, and I think we'll see more of it going forward. You think of a guy like Gary Trent Jr. is a guy that's probably worth more than like a minimum type deal, but he's down there. If you look at this offseason, you kind of wonder what a guy like Bogdan Bogdanovic, is he going to get squeezed into a minimum somewhere? I don't know. It could happen. So I definitely think we'll start to see more of it.
Oh, I fully expect Bogdan back in EuroLeague next season, because I don't think he's going to stay in the States for a minimum deal. He can get that kind of money in Europe with no problems. And there are actually already some rumors about him coming back to Partizan Belgrade, but I don't want to speak about that too much, before anything happens. Back to my original question about the top level talent on the Nuggets compared to the other contenders. Can you see another team that can challenge the group of Joker, Jamal, Aaron Gordon, Cam Johnson, Peyton Watson, like on the starter level?
Yeah, so I would say OKC is right there. But they need their best performance out of Jalen Williams, and they haven't always got that this year. If they don't get that from him, I think you put Denver ahead of them, honestly. Other teams I'd look at, if the Rockets get Van Vliet back, I think they'll probably be pretty good. They'd be contending with Denver as far as top-end talent. And then I think Detroit, if Detroit trades for a Michael Porter Jr., maybe a Lauri Markkanen, I think they're right there as well. So those would probably be the top ones for me. New York, it kind of seems like there's some chemistry issues there that might be affecting. I don't think they're getting as much from that group as they should be. So maybe they make a move that puts them up there, but they're pretty tight as far as salaries and stuff go. So I don't know if they'll be able to do anything. So yeah, I kind of look at it as Denver, Houston, Oklahoma City, and then Detroit pending a good trade. So
yeah, I can agree with that. Okay, let's take another short break, and after that we're going to talk about stuff people came here to listen about, and that's the impending trade deadline and what the Nuggets are going to be wanting to do and what they're going to be able to do. So don't go anywhere. Okay, this is the moment I want to call everybody who hasn't read already your great primer on the Nuggets trade deadline. Just go follow Jake at the StatsQuatch on Twitter, and you will see the pinned tweet with the primer. It's not as big as some of your other primers used to be, so it's even more digestible. Even though I always appreciated the long, like deep dive stuff you did before. But if you're not into reading, you can get the digest of it in the next 30 minutes. So let's start with the fact that the Nuggets seem to be delaying the conversion of Spencer Jones' contract from a two-way to a full roster spot. And I understand it has cap implications, that they are determined to stay under the luxury tax line, or at least we think so, and that converting Spencer earlier means more money on the books. I wouldn't be completely fine with it, even if everybody were healthy right now and Spencer was their 9th or 10th most important player on the roster. But in the current situation where so many of the main guys are still out, it makes me very nervous that they are even considering losing Spencer to an X amount of games due to penny pinching. I'm asking you as a fan, and you choose which perspective you want to use for your answer. Why should or shouldn't I play ball with this kind of approach with Spencer Jones' contract?
Yeah, I think from a fan point of view, obviously no fan wants to hear that they're doing it just to save their owners some money. And I totally get that perspective. So I think from a fan point of view, you probably go into it and say, okay, let's get to the trade deadline with as much flexibility as possible. So if you convert Spencer Jones, right, that's taking up a full-time roster spot. And that might limit possibly some of the trades you're able to make if you have a full roster. And so I would say, from a fan point of view, give it to the trade deadline. Let them see what moves are out there, because it's possible they do some type of deal where they send one guy out, get two back, and then make some other small move to make a spot for Spencer. So that would probably be what I would say from a fan point of view. Obviously, if they get to the trade deadline and don't do anything else, and then they're also pushing off the Spencer contract, I think that's when it's an okay time to be frustrated about it.
So what are the options when it comes to Peyton Watson's situation? Is it what kind of deal would you expect him to get from the Nuggets when he is finally signed, and we hope he's going to be signed? Would it be like a minimum exception until the end of the season, or is it more usual, league-wide, to try to get a piece of their MLE exception and just sign him to a multi-year deal, possibly with some team options at the end of it?
Yeah. So you said Peyton Watson, but you're still talking.
Yeah, sorry, Spencer Jones. I mean,
okay,
Spencer
cool.
Jones.
Yeah. So one of the things I laid out in that report is something similar to what Washington did with Justin Champagnie. And basically what they did was, about a year ago, it was March during last season, he was on a two-way. And in order to convert him, they used part of their mid-level exception, which Denver also still has available right now. And what that allows you to do is sign a deal longer than 2 years, which is what you can do with a minimum contract. So basically what they did was they gave him, I think it was like $1.8 million for the rest of last season, which is a nice little bump over the minimum. And then the 3 years after that were all non-guaranteed. And so they'll guarantee in January if he's on the roster, and they kind of move forward like that. So I think that's sort of what I would expect the Nuggets to do with Jones, considering they have the MLE available. Give him a nice little pay bump for this year, and in return, he allows you to make those future years non-guaranteed. So maybe he only does 3 years instead of 4, because I think he's shown a little bit more maybe than Champagnie had at the time of his deal. So maybe it's only 3 years, but I would expect something like that.
I would be happy, because what we've seen so far from Spencer Jones, and especially last night he had some crazy hustle plays, like some real winning plays against some really good players on the other side of the court. So kudos to Spencer for everything he did. Honestly, last season too, like every time he got the opportunity to play last season, he was showing a lot of basketball IQ and just doing his role really well. And this season, he started in more games than Christian Brown, than Aaron Gordon, even Cam Johnson. He's been there and he's been good. Even though when you look at his box score, it's like 2 points, 5 points, 4 rebounds. He's not a box score guy. He's a guy that does the invisible stuff, or actually stuff that's only visible on tape.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And the amount of money that he could get with this type of deal, it's not like the type of money that he has to be a playoff player, right? Like he could just be a depth piece and that's totally okay. So if the team gets healthy and you're not using him anymore, but you still sign him to this deal, it's still a good thing. So you don't have to look at it as, oh, they made a bad deal if he's not in the playoff rotation. I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So let's now go to Peyton Watson, who I made a Freudian slip just a couple of minutes ago. So, what are the options when it comes to his situation? What would be, for instance, the upside of trading him now compared to waiting for his restricted free agency?
Yeah.
Not that
So
anybody's actually thinking about it. It's just we need to explore all the options.
yeah. So pretty much the three options with Watson are you trade him now, or you wait till the offseason and you re-sign him, or you wait until the offseason and you lose him. So I've seen a couple people throw out, hey, could we sign and trade him away in the summer? And the problem is under the new CBA, a second apron team can't get a player back when you sign and trade a guy away. So that's kind of a new thing. And so it's not really an option considering where Denver's salaries are. So as far as the upside of trading him now, I think that would be, you're always talking to agents and you kind of know where other teams are at a little bit. If you really are getting the sense that the Lakers are going to throw $30 million a year at Peyton Watson, or other teams are going to do similar, the upside of moving him now is you might trade him to a team that is in a worse market than the Lakers that would benefit from having his restricted rights. And so you might be able to get some assets for him right now, where the player you get back isn't as good as Watson is, but maybe they're a little cheaper, a little bit more long-term security, or maybe you even get some draft picks back for him. So there's certainly some upside in doing that.
Do you have a deal in mind that wouldn't be crazy for the Nuggets?
Um, so there's two things that I kind of looked at and debated with a Watson trade right now. The first thing I looked at was, is there any team that would give Denver 2 first-round picks for him? So my idea was if Denver could get a 2027 pick and a 2029 pick for Watson, just the way that their draft picks are set up right now, that would enable them to actually trade away 3 in a different deal. So they could trade a 26, a 28, and a 30 if they got back a 27 and a 29. So I know that's kind of confusing, but just bear with me for a minute. So that would be the one thing I'd look at is there any team that would give you 2 picks? If you can get that, I would certainly consider it. The only other deal that I kind of looked at was something with the Clippers. So obviously Watson's got some California connections there. I think he'd enjoy playing out there. And the Clippers have some guys at decent salary numbers that you could get back for him. So like a Chris Dunn, you could get a Chris Dunn for Peyton Watson. Maybe you could also do like a Peyton and Zeke for Chris Dunn and Derek Jones Jr. He's been hurt this year, so he might not contribute right away, but those are probably the types of deals you're looking at if you're trading Watson away right now.
There, one more thing I see online people are confused about is because the CBA is really complex and you really need to be in the weeds to understand some stuff. Is do the Nuggets need to make any kind of big move to help themselves retain Peyton in free agency in July? I mean, a big move today. Can you possibly see a scenario where his free agency, or alternatively, can you see a scenario where his free agency drags for a long time, like Jonathan Kuminga's last summer?
Yeah, I could see that pretty easily. I don't know if it'll go quite as long as Kuminga's did, but you could look at a guy like Quentin Grimes, who he had his dragged out a little bit. I could see it being that same type of deal just because there's a little bit of a lack of multiple years of tape with Peyton Watson being this level of player. So certainly could see some drag out there. As far as like making things easier for yourself right now to sign him, if there's any way you could get off like the Zeke Naji money, that would be a huge bonus. I also think Strother, his deal goes up to like $4.5 million next year.
Yeah, because he's a first round pick.
If there's any way you could get off that, that also helps you. So those would probably be the two main things that I'd look at and say doing either of those would help you keep him.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Let's now go to the assets the Nuggets have outside of their players and their contracts. The Nuggets have no picks to trade in the next 5 days except for the 2032 second round pick and the first round pick swaps in 2028, 30 and 32. Am I right?
Yeah, 26, 28, 30 and 31.
Oh, okay, 30 and 31. Okay. So what other sweeteners can they use next to their current players in order to either trade for another guy on an expiring deal for future cap sheet purposes, or just to trade a guy away for substantially nothing, like a top 55 protected second round pick, just to get a relief in the cap?
Yeah, so really for Denver, outside of those pick swaps and that second round pick in 2032, you're really just looking at cash is the only other thing you could trade. So the limit this season on cash that's tradable is just a little bit under $8 million. We see deals at least once a season, I think, where a team just trades a player away with a bunch of cash just for the other team to kind of take him. So this happened a couple years ago with Noah Vonleh being a Celtic. They traded him to the Spurs with a bunch of cash just so that they would take him. And there's plenty of deals you could go back and look at that are like that. So yeah, in summary, pick swaps, 2032 pick, and cash. That's what you're working with.
Yeah, not a lot, but we will see what can they do with those assets right after this last short break. So don't go anywhere. You mentioned Noah Vonleh just now. He's a Nuggets legend, so put some respect to his name. I don't know if he actually played in any games, but he's been on the roster from the trade deadline up until the end of the season. I remember that huge deal with Juancho and Malik Beasley and a first round pick somewhere in the distance that the Nuggets got for those guys.
Yeah, I believe it was Najee, if I remember right. I believe that was the Najee pick that they got.
Okay. Again, Nuggets legend Zeke Naji. This is his 6th season with the team. Not a lot of players have got that far with the Nuggets. Okay, let's now explore the 4 trade scenarios you created for your trade deadline primer. First, and I've made a little presentation of it. It's actually just a screenshot from your primer. I hope you don't mind that. So first, Zeke Naji and his $8.2 million contract this season and 2 more similar years going forward, plus a 2028 first round pick swap for $10 million worth expiring deal of Lonzo Ball. And then you said this is a mock trade if luxury tax did not matter, and who knows, maybe it doesn't, even though we think it does. This deal adds salary to the Nuggets cap sheet this season, taking them above the luxury line for sure, unless there's at least one more move following to get off some money. But it actually clears the books from Zeke's contract in next 2 seasons. Would this be just a money-saving move, or would you consider it a basketball move as well?
Yeah, I think it's, the primary motivation here is probably money, because Lonzo Ball has just been really rough offensively this year. It's been pretty bad. He could still defend a little bit, but getting off the Zeke Naji money is kind of your primary motive here. But I do think Lonzo Ball is someone that's worth having on your depth chart. I probably wouldn't want to rely on him in a playoff setting, but it'd be a nice piece to have in case you need him. I think he'd be ready to play. And so, you mentioned earlier about how Cleveland is sort of the only really high salary team. And so for them, while this only saves $1.8 million on the cap for them, it actually saves them a significant amount more in tax. So that's sort of the Cleveland motivation half of this. They are a little thin in the front court as well. So I think Zeke could play for them a little bit in theory. But that's sort of the motivation for both sides there.
Is it the 2028 pick swap instead of 2026 because it's like a more handsome one?
Yeah. So I think if you're Cleveland, 2026 is already most likely going to be, you're going to have a worse record than Denver. So 2028, in theory, if you get really lucky, maybe Jokić isn't on the Nuggets anymore, because currently he might not be. So if you're really lucky, that's the case. But I think more so it's just, hey, there's maybe a chance that we're a little better than the Nuggets a couple years from now. So I think that's the deal there.
It's a long shot, a lottery ticket. Okay, let's go to the second scenario, and this one you called because the luxury tax does matter. Denver acquires a top 55 protected future second round pick. So basically, Denver doesn't get anything, but according to the rules, they have to have something written on a piece of paper to finish the deal. And Utah acquires Hunter Tyson $2.2 million contract, expiring contract, and cash considerations. This would get the Nuggets under the luxury tax point. How much money would they save in this kind of move? How much real money could they save with this move?
Yeah, so off the cap there, you're saving $2.2 million, and you're probably going to eat most of that up in a Spencer Jones contract. And then theoretically, you'd still have an open roster spot that you could save for like a buyout guy if there's anybody you're targeting. So in theory, you might only save $500,000 of that cap hit, but it's sort of being redistributed into like more useful players, I think, than Hunter Tyson. So I think most people would agree, Hunter Tyson or Spencer Jones, who would be more useful for the Nuggets here. I think most people would say Spencer Jones. So it does get you below the luxury tax, and it gives you space to make those moves. So in all actuality, not saving you tons of money, but you're redistributing it in a way that's more beneficial.
So if they're able to pay Spencer $500,000 fewer than they were supposed to pay Hunter Tyson, that would get them under the luxury cap, whatever it is called, limit. So they would get actually some money redistributed from the league, that all the teams under the luxury tax get from the teams that actually pay the luxury tax. So yeah, that's a pretty good piece of business. I mean, it's not like the Kroenkes are saving money; they're just earning more money compared to what they're already earning this
Yep.
season, right?
Yeah, no, you're totally right. So all the tax teams, they make their luxury tax payments, and then the league takes half of that money, and then the other half gets distributed among all the non-tax teams. So uh, certainly a deal like this puts a number of millions of dollars back in the Kroenkes' pockets at the end of the day.
So basically, they could pay like $2 million to Utah for
Yeah.
this kind of favor and still be
Yep.
what 6 million good at the end of it, right?
Yeah, it's basically a smart investment, I guess you could say. So you are writing a check right now for someone to take on his contract, but yeah, you're going to make it up on the back end when those distributions come around.
Okay, if the first deal had probably a probability of like 5%, I guess, I would say this one has like a 70% probability of happening. I mean, not this one in particular, but something very similar to what you made here,
Yep.
possibly with another team and stuff like that. Okay, let's go to the third scenario, and that is adding depth. Parting with Deron Holmes. Many Nuggets fans were screaming for Deron to get more opportunities this season, especially since so many guys started missing prolonged times with injuries. But Deron is firmly behind Zeke Naji in the pecking order of Nuggets backup bigs. This is why I'm guessing you thought of a deal where Deron goes to Sacramento and Denver gets also a former first round pick, Precious Achuva, who is about $1 million cheaper and is on an expiring deal. That's also important because Deron already spent practically 2 seasons of his first round contract, so he has 2 more, and they're gonna be growing, especially the fourth one. So that makes a lot of sense. So this feels like trading away a guy with the upside that hasn't been realized, in almost 2 seasons due to injury and coaching staff vision, for a no risk guy who doesn't have to work since he is on an expiring deal, but also could possibly fill in some minutes, especially late in the regular season when most contenders are trying to rest their main guys as much as they can afford.
Yep. Yep. So you got the motivations there exactly right. So from Sacramento's point of view, Achua is basically just a 3-month rental. He's not going to be a king here in 3 months, most likely. But he's played pretty well for him. And you're getting a guy back in Holmes who's a little bit more of an upside swing. You're going to have him at least another two plus years. And you'll see what he's got. And then for Denver, you're getting a guy who can play in the front court. And I think you're getting a little bit of insurance where if not Deron Holmes, if Valanciunas maybe tweaks an ankle or tweaks a calf in the playoffs and he has to miss some time, well, now you have Achua and you're not totally sunk in those backup big minutes. So it's a little bit of an insurance policy, I think, for Denver where, hey, if we're in the playoffs and we have to play one of these two guys on your screen here, who are we more comfortable playing? It's probably Achua. So that's kind of the motivation there.
I think you're right because Deron hasn't shown so far that he is playoff ready, and yeah, Achua is at least has been in the league for a longer time, and he was actually a pretty precious kind of prospect back in the time
Yeah.
when he was drafted. So, how would you feel as a fan about this kind of trade? Because even though Precious probably has a better chance of playing in the playoffs than Deron, it feels like a penny pinching move with not a lot of potential there. It's just giving up on your first round prospect just to be sure that you're under the luxury tax.
Yeah, no, I get that it could be a tough pill to swallow, especially when you think about Denver gave up 3 second-round
Yeah.
picks just to move up and select homes. So it's kind of you're sort of flushing that all down the toilet. But I think from a team point of view, if you say, for example, we have a 20% chance to win the title this year, well, if this deal moves you up to 24%, is it worth sort of flushing all that other stuff down the drain? That's kind of the question you have to ask. So that's the reason I threw it out, is I think it does help their title chances for this year. Maybe it hurts it down the line, sure, but is it worth it to up it for this year? So that's kind of the question you have to ask.
Yeah, it's a bad look, and we know that front offices don't like to have too many bad looks. Like they care about the public perception as well. Okay, last trade scenario you prepared for us in your primer is a big swing, or a bigger swing as you called it. So even though I think we agree it's not an earth-shattering move, but Chicago gets Zeke Naji, Julian Strother, and a 2032 second-round pick for the old Denver's draft crush, Jalen Smith. Julian, unlike Hunter Tyson and Jalen Pickett, as we mentioned, is a first-round pick, which means Denver doesn't have a team option for the last season of his 4-year deal signed in 2023. So this move would free up the cap sheet from both Zeke and Julian's contracts, and would bring a more reliable, at least on paper, big guy who is shooting the 3-ball pretty reliably this season, and also grabs 4 rebounds in just 20 minutes per game. That's more than 12 per 36, which is almost as good as Jonas Valanciunas' 13 rebounds per 36 minutes. I'm completely sold on this deal, but would Chicago be?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think from Chicago's point of view, so Jalen Smith's contract has 2 years remaining on it, including this year. So Zeke's has 3, including this year. So basically the question for Chicago is, we're going to take on 1 extra year of Zeke Naji's money. Is that worth a second-round pick way down the line and an upside swing at a guy like Strother? So that's sort of the question they have to ask themselves. I think it's in the right neighborhood here for Jalen Smith. Like, I don't think they're going to get a first-round pick for him.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if they did. So I think it's like right in the right neighborhood. Is it a little light? Yeah, maybe. Maybe you need to throw a first-round swap in there with it as well. But I definitely think it's along the lines of what I'd expect a Jalen Smith deal to look like.
I'm just thinking, would he work as a 4 next to Joker or Jonas? Is he versatile enough to just play the 4, instead of Zeke, or just be a small ball 5, I guess?
No, I think he does work at the 4. I'm trying to think if Jokić has played with anybody in that sort of archetype. He's like a little bit of a less mobile Jeremy Grant, I guess you could say. So Jeremy Grant worked pretty good with Jokić when he was here. But Smith rebounds a lot better than Grant does. But he can't defend the same number of positions as Grant. So there's some give and some take there. But I guess that would be the most similar comparison I would use for the Jokić era. I think he could play next to him. So I would have no problem giving that a try, and I think it would even be a useful lineup. So
maybe playing him next to Aaron Gordon would actually make more sense. Now that I think about it, it's just a matter of which kind of minutes are available at the end of the season and possibly in the playoffs. But definitely an intriguing player. I even wanted to put him on the thumbnail of today's show, because this is how well I feel about him. But when Joker came back, I guess we're gonna have Joker back on the thumbnail as well. Okay, thank you so much for doing this show, Jake. Do you have anything in plans, anything in works that would be interesting for the vast Denver Nuggets audience? Maybe
nothing immediately. I would say follow Follow me at my Twitter handle there at the Stat Squatch. Have been working on a big project for over a year that I won't share too much detail on, but it's basically an application kind of that sort of helps you see things like a GM might be able to see things. So it's been a big project I've undertaken and hoping to have it out by the start of next regular season. So follow my Twitter and there will be some updates there hopefully this summer. And looking forward to sharing it with people when it's out.
Well, unless you get hired by a front office somewhere, maybe they will just take your app with you and forbid you from showing it to the West.
If that happens, we're gonna have to go back in the archives here and delete this show from existence. So
it never happened. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh man, that's really fun, and I know you have plans of joining a front office at some point of your career. I would be really excited for you because you definitely have the knowledge needed for that. It's just that I often think about people working for the teams and how few information they're allowed to share with the audience, and it's like a give it and take it with me. Like I hope to have you available to be a guest on this show for many years to come, but of course I understand that might not be possible at some point in time.
Yeah, well, hopefully I'm lucky enough to earn that opportunity one day, but until then, I'm looking forward to doing these shows with you probably twice a year, whatever we do, and sharing all the information I can.
Exactly. So I'm gonna definitely see you at some time in June when your next big primer is gonna be out there. Okay, that is all I've prepared for you today, my dear listener. And please, with cherry on top, please take the word prepared very loosely. Be well, be safe, be kind to everybody. Call your mom, and until next week, remember that my plan is to be Nuggets forever.